Okay, so yes, welcome again. Good afternoon and good morning, depending on where you're dialing in from, to another monthly UniPhi webinar. Today's topic, progress reporting. So I thought what I'd do is I'd just start with a bit of what are we trying to do at UniPhi when we created the actual application. One of the reasons we wanted to build it was getting progress reports was very difficult when we were running PMOs. Getting project managers to report to us and getting transparency around that was quite challenging, and still is. And so the idea being that you would be able to use the information you've already put into the application. So our design philosophy back then was we could automate reporting so that you didn't need to do anything. We would just look at what you're doing and be able to get reports that way. So it's sourced from the day-to-day activity of using the product. So the optimal use in our mind when we designed the system was for people to kind of, project managers more importantly, and team members to a lesser degree, but definitely there, to collaborate and to exist and run their projects on the UniPhi platform. That was a key ingredient for this to be able to work. Now, some of our clients over that period of time have got into a more fragmented project environment, and so we've come up with a lot of functionality that has changed this. But I think as a design philosophy and as a goal, I think for project management, it's not a bad one. Have the data sourced from what you're doing already, less commentary, so you're not spending a lot of time at the end of the month thinking what's happened and typing up a report. You're not copying and pasting data from lots of different sources into a PowerPoint or a Word document to be rendered to PDF at a later date. So hopefully there's an instant benefit there for the project manager in not needing to report. But also what it means is that you can rely on the fact that the data is more objective. And as you'll see through the presentation, if you're using UniPhi for that reporting rather than an unstructured document like PDF or PowerPoint, you can actually get more information if needs be. So a consumer of the report should, if the report's designed well, be able to find additional information if they need it. However, I'm sure a lot of people, and we've been at this one for a while, giving us feedback. Clients have requests, clients have requirements, and clients have requirements of our software in addition to clients having requirements for your reporting. And so the actual capability of the tool in terms of these progress reports, it's very flexible. So you can build your own custom reports, multiple versions thereof. You can make them wordy. So although the design philosophy there was to be objective and roll up from day-to-day activity, etc., you're not locked into that. It's what fits you, and what we've been working on lately is ways to make that flexibility even broader and to support even more options around this, because the way we look at it is if you can't get the data out that you put into the system, then people are still using it on quite a large scale in that regard, just for quality control and getting that basic notices out the door. But to get that more extended reporting is really the goldmine of what we're trying to achieve on this road of building this application. So yeah, even though I said on the first slide, this is what we're trying to do, this is the philosophy, this is how we're trying to do it. You will have clients who have different requirements, or you may disagree. You can build different types of reports. That's essentially what I wanted to get as a start before I jumped into the application itself. Okay, so I'm now logged into our major projects presentation deployment. It's the one I use every month. And I'm in the system admin version. What I'm going to do is just jump over to, and I'll just reiterate, if you have any questions as I go along, please feel free to jump in on chat or to unmute yourself and challenge me on anything. Be happy to have the conversation. I might be a little slow after a 30-hour plane flight, but we'll get there in the end. What I'm going to do is just log in as a different person initially. We're going to come back to the system admin person in a moment. But, what I meant by PCG, because some people, PCG is a bit of a construction term, and there's lots of people on the call here who aren't in that. So I just mean progress report. As I said, flexibility means that progress report will be different in construction. There's a design phase that has a lot of design commentary and a lot of approvals from pesky councils and state government, EPAs and the like, that you want to be able to track. In an internal PMO sense, it could be sprints, or it could be communication milestones and things like benefits realization, value, and things like that. So it will be different, but essentially, it's overall, it's just a progress report is what we're talking about here. And if you're using the platform in its entirety to collaborate with all of your stakeholders in a dream world, if I log in here as Bernard, Bernard is a project manager access level to UniPhi. And so when Bernard logs in, I'm doing this in Edge so that I can have different users logged into the same deployment at the same time. Some recalcitrant latecomers. When he logs in, you'll see when I click the little thing, actually program manager today, so not system administrator. And when I go to the summary module, the same summary module of the system that I was in before in Firefox for admin, you'll see the observant person may notice something subtly different between the two pages. So I'll just toggle between the two now. So this is Edge, and then I come across to Firefox. Firefox is system admin. That's got Gandalf the Grey there as an administrator named Joe Blogs. And this one has Bernard, who is a Yoda program manager. And what you'll notice is that there's little squares here, only on 2 of them. There should be more further down. You can see Bernard's on a lot of projects. He's a bit overworked, poor Bernard. But this is just, actually wouldn't be his portfolio because I'm filtered for it. So let's do that. Because he is a program manager, you can see the entire list. If you're project manager, you can only see your own. And now we've got just the 2 pages, and these boxes are essentially, it's a clue. It wasn't designed to say this, but it's a clue. It says, okay, on these projects where there's a box, Bernard is actually a project manager role. He's actually responsible for the delivery of those projects. And hence, he has the ability to change the lifecycle phase, which is what that checkbox is enabling you to do. And so if he is a team member on these projects, he's not managing them, he's participating in the outputs, he can't change the lifecycle. He can't do a lot of other stuff as well, but it's just in that particular instance, that's what that feature does, enables you to change the lifecycle phase of a project. And you can only do that if you're the project manager and you haven't got it configured to control that sort of stuff through documentation. So there's a few little ands there. But the reason I wanted to come into here, leaving that aside, is back on topic. We have these red, amber, green ratings here, and they're built into UniPhi based on algorithms that were developed over time, been pretty well tested as a way of assessing whether a project is performing well or not. And we're actually using these as the first precursor to some machine learning that we're starting to develop as well, which will come into the UniPhi 20 conversation starting off around August this year. And what that does is it just gives you an idea of where the project's performing. EXT, INT is external and internal. So it's a very, very, very high level progress report. But you can actually instantly get more detail. And one of the things I wanted to show you is if I click on the link that I'm not project managing, so one of these other ones, let's just do this record management software. It'll take me into a PCG, a progress report. So you'll start to get schedules and issues and risks and other things about this project to find out when it starts, when it finished, what its budget is, etc. When I can manage it, I can actually manage the metadata. So the first screen that I see is actually the edit screen where I can change things. But if I drop across to the details, I also then get another list of red, amber, green statusing around various things that roll up into that overall red, amber, green for external and internal. I'm just going to go to my favorite project within this which is a school in New Zealand called Wananga. And you'll see here that there's quite rich information here that should tell you a story. We have a cash flow profile here. We can see the project has been struggling to keep up with baseline, but it's going to miraculously do so over the remainder. People will admit. And that's telling us a story of how that's performing. We also have these risk trends, and we can see that our mitigation strategies seem to be working. Our high risks are going down, although they've gone up again a bit lately, so that might be something worth looking into. And also just wanted to mention this. These are your custom fields. And again, your admin person, when you work with them, can actually get any custom field that's a metric to appear in here, and over time probably rich text boxes as well, but that's not a feature at the moment. That way you could put not just your commentary up here about the project progress, but you describe what's going on here. That comes into the monthly update sub-navigation. And see who's working on the project. That's also configurable, and some metadata about it, and its other metrics, and you can see where it's been tracking. You can see a bit of that slipping in the cash flow. So these fact-based things should tell a story, and you should be able to then go to the issue system and see the 3 high-rated issues, or go to the cost module and see where the actual costs are lower than budget. So if you're in a government agency, that can be a bad thing, spending a budget that they've allocated to you that disappears miraculously in July. And so these are things that, from a high-level perspective, can start to give you information about the project from a progress reporting perspective. So that's the first example of a progress report in UniPhi. There's actually 4 different platforms, but then a plethora on top of that as the type. These ones you're kind of locked in with what we give you, but we're always interested in feedback to expand. The rest you can pretty much tailor to what you need. So what I'll do now is I'll duck back to the admin screen, because I'm going to need to show some admin configuration capability on this a little later on. And we're going to go to our second, which is in the dashboards module. So the dashboards module is an integration with Power BI. It enables you to build your own progress reports, and that way you can tailor it to exact requirements of your customer. But it is meant to be a visual. This one isn't overly visual. It does have the cash flow again without the actuals coming through this time, but if they were there, we could see actual forecast against that. And these, proportion of budget committed. So we've got 2 million left of the budget that we haven't actually committed to a contract yet. And then also our spend profile. And again, you can see that we're way behind our target spending. And so these little speedometers quite insightful too. These here are all very, you can go and make them more verbose. It's definitely data that you've keyed into the issues module and risks and milestones modules, but they're there to be short, sharp updates of what's going on. Again, some high level information as well, what phase we're in, what month end we're reporting, who the development manager is. So there is a second page to this dashboard as well. There's more ability to put in your own commentary text there, some roles and responsibilities, and Gantt and cost information as well. So the idea here is that it's just there to be consumed by your customer whenever they want to consume it, rather than something you would compile yourself. It is snapshotted, and you can see there's a month end there, so it's not like they're getting necessarily live data, but they can still log in and consume it. And so you can actually configure a team member license for people to access these. You can also, if you don't want to do that, do the wonderful thing and export it to PowerPoint or to PDF. That's a new feature that a lot of you won't have, but it's there ready for your next upgrade when UniPhi 19 releases. And so if I just click on that, it'll take a little while to run. It takes a little while, but compared to compiling the PowerPoint from scratch on this sort of stuff, it's still a lot quicker. And then you can obviously email that to your client. But there is a capability within UniPhi to configure these dashboards. And so just to show you that, just going to, while it's running, it might give us a bit of grief. Here we go. If I go into the configuration hamburger here, so I click the 3 lines up the top, you can see there's a, sorry, I'm going to go into apps. There could be a bit of that, the brain is foggy. If I go into apps, you'll see that there's a Power BI embedded sub-navigation. Now, this is only accessible by the system administrator, but you'll see in the dashboards that you've published into the workspace that'll appear when you click on the dashboards, there's a minimum license required. And you can see that the major projects, PCG and performance management, have program manager and team member respectively. And not only that, for this particular one, we've limited the view to a organization. So what that means is you can set up a particular report for your client. You can have them log in as a team member license, costing the extortionate amount of $10 a month. And what will happen is they will see this. So this time I'm going to go to Chrome. the browser is not relevant. I'm just using a different one so I can log in and not lose my access on the other one. So Jane Smith is a team member, access level, same database, same application, major projects. And you can see that when Jane logs in, she's part of Optimum Construction, so she gets the PCG report that we were just looking at there. So it's very simple for you to be able to come up with your own design, your own requirements, build those, or work with us to build them, have them published into this environment, and then have different ones for different clients to log in and actually see and consume as they need to, rather than in any formal time of the month kind of operation. So again, if I click on that hamburger here, you can see it's Jane Smith with a wonderful photo there of my daughter about 20 years ago. And she's classed as a team member in this example. So that Power BI dashboard has been around for a while. We've been banging on about it through other webinars, so I won't spend too much time on it, but I just wanted to reiterate that capability is there, and it's something that you can limit to a relatively low granularity. People still need a login, so that controls who can access it, and you can then say, okay, only people from this organization will be able to access that particular report. Right, good question. So there's two things to this. The question was, I don't have this. Why don't I see this in my screen? Or why don't I see the dashboards that we're showing? So these are presentation dashboards that we've created to show off the system, but if you want them, you can have them. That's not a problem. But also, if you haven't published a Power BI dashboard, you won't have this menu. Additionally, if you haven't upgraded recently, that menu might be under the reporting section. So it's still there, but we felt that it needed to be brought up to the top and made easier to access, so it's no longer embedded down into the dashboards under the hamburger. So if you haven't got the dashboard up here, it's just basically either you need to upgrade or you need to have a Power BI report that is actually published into UniPhi. And if you like any of these ones, let us know, and we can give you access to that, point them at your database, and you can have a look and see how they come through. Yeah, so we can just send you those. So the specific question was, how do I get these ones? We can send you these, and you can see how they come through. Now, there will be configuration requirements, right? So this has been configured to have things like, if I go into here, you can see the category description is design. Another one that it should have, but it's hard to get good dummy data, it should have an escalation factor in it. So one of the things that was going to go into the next round of this presentation is, the data capture has to be done in a relatively structured way. Not too crazy, but I'll get to that a bit in a moment. And so it's quite possible when we give you these reports that you'll refresh them and there'll be no data there because you haven't got an issue category called design. So there's a few little things that you need to work through, but an ultimate goal of being able to offer this type of service, I'm sure, would be something that would be interesting to someone, Paul, anyway. Okay, and one other dashboard I did want to show, actually, that I forgot I was going to show, is these are all progress reports on a project. It's also possible, obviously, to do program-based reporting. This is more around project controls to earn value, mainly on engineering infrastructure projects. We're providing these types of dashboards, but they're relevant. They're relevant for any project. And this is the consolidated performance of the project, which has, some of these programs have thousands of activities rolling up into this, and activities are projects, the project section of UniPhi. So can be the contract deliverables as well. So if I go to package summary, again, going back to our philosophy, it should tell a story, and you should be able to consume it without a lot of text necessarily. If there's any earned value nuts here, you'll know that there's some interesting reads going down. So here's some activities here. You can have as many of them as you like. There'd be a scroll there if there was more than, if I expand this particular one to its children, you'll see there's a scroll bar there now. and I can see the performance of these from an earned value perspective. This down here is charting the trend lines for these activities. And so these are interactive graphs. If I click on one, it gives me the performance here. And you can see the one is good in earned value. Above one is exceptional, below one is poor performing. And so from a schedule perspective, this particular activity is doing okay, but from cost, it's zero for some data quality issue. And then you click on the link again and again, it comes back. So those sorts of trends are there for you to see outliers, see things that you might need to drill in on. And mentioned before, if it's designed well, you should be able to then get into the system quite quickly and see what is the milestone that hasn't been improved yet, what was its baseline and forecast, and where is it at, and what's the progress status. So again, thinking through that design, if someone wants more information, they should be able to get it. Where should they go? How do you do that? How do you bring that in there? So that little paperclip was one example that could work for you on that. Okay, moving on. So that's number two. We've covered two ways of doing progress reporting. This is now going back to more of the sort of traditional paving a cow path in a way methodology for progress reporting. And so you can see that I'm in the documents module now, and I've looked across all projects and just filtered on PCG. You can see there's one here for this 100 school. What I'm going to do first is just look at it, and just like that's all we've been doing on the other two, is just consuming the information. Then what I want to do is, which will cover all three that we've discussed so far, just look at where the data comes from and what sort of practices you need to put in place in your business if this is going to actually work. And so I'll just click on this first. And so this will open up in a new window as an HTML document. And so what this means is that all the content has been created in the document itself. Some people go and create them as monthly update fields and then bring them into the document using template variables. The capability is there for that, but it does create problems. Template variables don't refresh when you edit them. So it can become problematic to update. In theory, one of the things about UniPhi's document system is version control. If you go into file shares, you end up having 40, 50, 60 files within the one folder. If you're version controlling, you don't actually necessarily need to create a new document. It's just every month's report would be a different version for that particular project. You need to have one link in the actual document register here. Different ways to do things. So we've got an executive summary and some charting. Now, UniPhi 19 is bringing in new charts here, but we had to use the old ones for this demonstration, but they still tell a story. We have that risk trend coming in again. We have a slick schedule coming from construction, but it's limited. It's not as rich as what the time gap can give you, which I'll show in a moment too. And then again, we've got that construction cash flow that's showing a slip and then eventual catch up. And this is where we're talking about that automation, where we're actually going to see when we create a new one of these, some of this stuff is boilerplate text automatically populating. And one of the other things I don't think people know is you can actually compare to a previous document. And that's what this VLF is doing. So both these controls could have. This one didn't actually have it configured, but you could, and I'll show you that in this demonstration as well. So VLF is an old finance term versus last forecast. So it means the last report that you issued out. What's changed, and so that's something that's probably not well known. And the other thing that's not really well utilized is the ability to track contingency drawdown and just be able to display where that's been allocated over time. So this is representing how it's been allocated out and where we forecast it might be allocated. So this is consumption. We're hoping to hold breath for a while and then start to draw down some more as we head towards the end of the project. So the thing about this one is that it's the same template control as these ones. It's just filtering for different information. So it's filtering for contingency and it's only showing one column. Same here, you can filter for a specific code and have it display the subcodes and it within that. So then we've got, we're just thinking basics here in project management. You've got time, cost, and quality. One of the new things that we've brought into UniPhi 19 in the attempt to continue to get this to be flexible enough for our clients, plus it's definitely better to have this, is summary tables. So you can have a register, you'll see at the end, registers of all of your contract administration communications, so variation register, EOT register, instruction notice register, etc. But also a lot of the reports that we've been looking at from our clients, the Word ones that they develop themselves, often are just a summary of information about a particular, the main works contract. And so this is available in UniPhi 19, and I think it'll be a good one, just showing what you can do. Okay, even though these are stated differently, they're actually just issues, UniPhi issues. And then we have our risks, which we'll touch on as well. Obviously, that's correlated with the risk trend that we had in our executive summary. Progress photos, there's a new layout format where you can lay them out quite neatly side by side, fit more in on a page. And then you get into your appendices where, again, you can go nuts. If you're getting paid by the pound, you can have these spit out as detailed cost report as you've got, and also as detailed variation registers you've got. So you've got 600 variations, and you need to get them all out for every single contract. You'll see in a moment you can do that quite quickly, and then you've got yourself a 400-page document that validates a fee, if that's the goal, rather than just reporting progress. What I'm going to do now is, obviously, again, that's not really consumable by your client, so it needs to be rendered to PDF. And this is where a style sheet matters, and you can have multiple style sheets for different clients and for different sectors, perhaps. And there's a few things you can do around that would be done within the style sheet, like different standard photos on cover sheets, project-based photos on cover sheets potentially. So this would be the actual document that you would send to the client, and it would have whatever your branding is. So this particular report, it's just got a UniPhi branding. You have a cover sheet, you have a table of contents. If you've put a version control, template control in, it'll have version control information. This one just jumps straight into the information that everyone wants to know, is how's our project going. And then you can see that it lays out, and it's there to be consumed. Now, the challenge will be, is that to the standard that you want for your outputs, and why not? And you really just need to keep challenging us on the bits that need to change so we can fit that. That's our goal, is to keep iterating through to get these out the door. There may be some small issues, but I'm hoping that there are ones that don't stop you from using it in the interim, and then we just work through and make that expanded. Because you can imagine the time savings, and even just the quality control, if you can get these things to be generated from your core data. So what I'm going to do now is just check it out. People haven't left the room either, so I'm obviously hanging in there. I just want to generate that. So I'm going to generate this content and show you how that was actually created in the first place. And just want to explain a few little things in terms of flexibility around that. So the first thing to note is it's kept that category filtered. So if I go all, you'll see that this is a very long list of stuff that we use for demonstrations. So filtering is quite handy to limit what people can see or limit what they need to think about when creating it. So when I've got PCG, and I'll come back to you in a minute, Stan, I'll send you a question. We've got 3. So again, the point here is you don't have to be limited to one template. You can have as many as you like, and we've put into the description of the template the differences. So one's for handling post-contract construction phase progress, the other one's design, and the third one is about programs. So these templates can report multiple projects within the one report. Now, the question that was given to me while I was waffling on there is about workplace health and safety. And so you'll see in this particular report, there is a WHS section. There we go. Now, in this one, it was just to show off another type of template control. So I'm really glad you asked the question, because I meant to show that when I went through it. UniPhi has a template control that will automatically count how many of a certain issue has occurred. So again, it's category-based issues management. You have to have a category called OHS or WHS or health and safety or whatever you want to call it, but there must be something. And then this template control will count how many were open at the start of the month, created in the month, closed, open at the end, and also like the average days turnaround both in the month and overall. Also though, similar to these tables, you could actually spit out the issues themselves and have the workplace health and safety issues displayed in this report as well. So that's how you would cover both elements. And yeah, that one there is a good one for those summary-based reports who just want to communicate events, the volume of events that are happening, rather than the specifics. So I'm going to select this construction phase PCG and go into my project. Now, the first thing to note that when I looked at the document here, the executive summary was first, but in the template it's last. So the idea here is that a project manager is reviewing the information as they go through the document. They could review it in the system as well, and they probably would, but you're going to review it in the document too, because that's what they're actually going to send. And they're getting into their thoughts. What are they going to say? So the executive summary should be summarizing the report. It shouldn't be written first, even though it's displayed first. So you don't have to do what we did there, but that's been sort of a bugbear of mine for 20 odd years. Get the executive summary summarizing what's been displayed previously. And one way to coerce people into that is to put it at the end of a unified template, because one of the things you can do with a template is have it documented in one way, but formatted to spit out in a completely different order. The other thing to note within here is that if you do write any instructions on this, it will appear. And then there's also the little cog to change things like page break and orientation, which we put in as a hide because it's trying to make this page less intimidating to an end user. We've also done a number of things in here to make this less intimidating. In the current version, the end user would get all columns. I'll show you the interface for that for the admin person in a moment, but it's a lot cleaner and simpler. They can change the headings though if they don't like them. Okay, and then in this particular screen, there's a question on the period. There's actually no relevance to the period because there's no actual like phase data. It's all like total. So it's a total budget and a total forecast. But this template control can have that. It's just been hidden. So that's a little bit confusing, I guess, in this instance. Maybe that should be hidden. But when you get to the financial year spend, it's going to be phased. So when I come into here, there's a select month. And you can see that it'll display for the month if you wish. This template control hasn't been updated yet, so you can see that there's all of these tick boxes that haven't been ticked. So we're not going to display that information. In the future, when we finish 19, if that's what the admin person decided, you wouldn't see that. Plus, they wouldn't see that either to begin with. But anyway, that's getting beyond the topic. What is displayed here is the date certified. So the question was, what is it? When does an actual get recognized? It gets recognized on the date certified. If that's an issue, let us know, but that's what the actual is coming in there. So that actual is for year to date would be if the contract payment was certified in March, it would be displaying in here, March or before, because it's year to date. Okay, so this is just going to show year to date in total, but this also has that ability to compare to last forecast that I showed before, and that's happening by selecting the previous month's document here. So as you sign off documents, they become available to you to select in this particular screen. Contingency is just a subsection. So you can see here, we're selecting a subsection of the chart of accounts. So it doesn't have to be all. When we were back in this project cost summary, you would have seen we had projects. So it's showing everything at a level 2 depth. Whereas when I go to contingency, it's exactly the same. Exactly the same template control, just using completely different filtering to display a different outcome from it. So admins need to get their head around that and see that it's delivering what they want. And the same with this template control. This is a graph template control. And you can see again, the contingency code is selected here. You can see that it's got a mode, so you can actually look at it from a program perspective or a portfolio perspective. And the other thing is you can have, as you can see here, a curve and a bar chart at the same time, or you can, so then change it to monthly or cumulative to not have the two data sets displaying in there. You can round it down to thousands. So there's fair bit of stuff you can do around this particular stuff. This as well is if you're only reporting on the main contract, not consultants and all the others, you can actually just do it on the original contract. So we had a requirement from a client that said, I just need to be able to report cash flow against the original contract, not including variations, not including anything else. So again, you'd select the code that matches that, and all of the contract data would come into that code from the contract deliverables only, not from variations. So fair few options there to sort of get your head around. But so far, I haven't actually done anything. I've just clicked on links and I'm generating content. It's really the main point. And so again, this is now a summary. Now this is going to come before these four, but I can't summarize what I don't know. So they come first, then this summarizes it. And because I've selected things here, it's already populated the data. Okay, so these are coming from template variables. And so they're generating on the fly. We've got boilerplate text there to standardize what we want our project managers to communicate on a basic summary. They could then write more. And so on and so forth. They could even remove this as well. But there's an idea there that you can actually generate a structure for them to populate. We do need to do something here to get them to display. We need to tick that. So this is showing milestones. You can limit them to a certain time zone, and so on and so forth. I won't labor the point, but this is your extension of time claims, and this is the summary version of that. If I come down to the appendix 2, jumping ahead, this is the detailed version of variations. So it's the way that the template's been set up. This is listing every single one, whereas the extension of time was a summary. And you probably have a summary of variations, things like that too. We just got a little bit bored creating it, I think. The schedule summary, again, still comes in with the practical completion date, the construction phase, so the boilerplate text, ready for you to add more. This is filtering for steering committee. Probably would be on a category as well, but dummy data, again, you end up just cheating a little bit. But so you've pre-filtered this information so that there could be 1,000 issues in the system, but it's only showing 3 because they're the ones that you've escalated to the steering committee at this point in time. This one's filtered for quality steering committee. And then we get into risks, which again would have the steering committee escalation. Now, this list doesn't have to be steering committee, it's your escalation. You decide what that means. Change the wording to fit. This is the template control that does the counting. Again, based on a issue category, or WHS in this instance, but it could be anything. This is where you upload your photos and it'll lay them out as, I think I had some here. I should actually also show, I've been showing this the last few webinars, but there might be some new people here. So you can click that little paperclip and browse, or you can drag and drop. So it's just to reiterate about some functionality that's not really well known, except I can't remember where I put the photos anyway. There they are. So I've just highlighted the 4 and I just drag them across to the paperclip and away it goes. And our cost report gets populated here. That can be quite hard to fit in a landscape, even landscape page for A4. So we're still working on ways to improve that. Although the way it works in Excel is you just make it an incredibly small font that no one can see. So whether it adds value to the reporting process, I'm not sure. And then we've been to that page. This is some graphs that are going to lay out side by side. So even though they don't match perfectly here, you'll see in the document they do. We're expanding and improving all of these for the 19 release. And then in the exec summary, we should have boilerplate text there as well, but the person can summarize the report. And I've generated the same report that we had here. This was that. This is this. And you'll see it'll have different photos. Slightly different size as well, which makes it a little bit, but if people take it on their own phone, so long as they take it either portrait all or landscape all, you shouldn't have a problem. And that will render the PDF like it did before. So I said 10 minutes in the blurb, created in 10 minutes. I was explaining things as we went, but I didn't have to write the commentary. So depends on how long that commentary takes, but I'm hoping that that's been fairly evidential that would be quicker than normal. And that's the third way to get a progress report out of UniPhi. Did mention that you can do program and design, and you saw a bit of the element of that where you had all projects selected or something like that within a template. And you'll see that when I go into edit this template now. Well, not now, just in a little bit. What I wanted to do first, just 5 minutes to look at some of the configuration requirements for that report to happen. The first and simplest one is you need to use the issue system. If you're not using the issue system at all, then you can't use that progress report. Then that's the first step. Then when you do create the issue system, you need to think about the types of categorization you want to put things into so that you can have multiple systems within the one system. And what I mean by that is if I select WHS, which we had, one of the things it was counting was the type of event. Now, this is a UniPhi 19 sneak peek, but it's one I gave last month. You're now able to click this little button and change the column layout to include custom fields, right? So you'll see in here, over on the right-hand side, we've got this type, which is also filterable here. So life-threatening, minor, reportable. That list is whatever you want. It's a custom list. And it just enables you to create different systems, different subsystems within UniPhi. So that's the one thing that you might want to capture extra for a workplace health and safety issue. Whereas with a RFI, you might have something else like here we've got source, client, subcontractor, design team. So every single category can have its own extra bits of data contextualized to it. And then if you're using that on a day-to-day basis, proactively putting in actions, putting in emails, putting in due dates and assignments and chasing people, doing that. I'm presuming that's all happening now. It's either as flags in Outlook or it's in an Excel spreadsheet. If you can bring those into here, you then get the ability to have that progress report automatically spit out. This is the escalation element here. When you're in on a project, you'll see that can get tagged here when need to. You can see there's some other custom fields around that RFI that aren't seen in the dashboard, but they could be there if you wanted them to be. So yeah, that's key. That's fundamental. It's designing your issues management and then getting buy-in from your project managers to actually understand the benefit of driving their projects through UniPhi's issues. Equally the same with risks, although you can import risks from a spreadsheet. So if you just wanted it for the PCG, and this is the same for cash flow, if you're not responsible for cash flow, you can get a cash flow from a third party and import it in from the spreadsheet so that it flows through to your PCG report. Same with detailed cost reporting. If you're getting that from a cost manager and you're not managing that yourself, you should be able to get that sort of managed for importing into UniPhi, although perhaps potentially another option would be to open up that element of the system to that cost manager to maintain in there so that you've got visibility of that at all time as a possibility. And that has happened with some clients. So again, you need to configure the risk matrix, you need to configure the categorization, and then you need to get the escalation levels as well, which I imagine would be the same as the issue system, but and then you need to get people to get that data in to the system, which again, if it's happening outside by a risk team, when we functionalize these things in projects, then you still can import it in for the dashboard and for the progress reports. So yeah, they're the sorts of things. Equally, obviously, we mentioned costs and contract with cash flow. You need to be having a budget in the system that's flagged as being the approved budget. When you're letting your contracts, you're coding them up so that we get committed and uncommitted values, and you need to be putting in a forecast for works that hasn't been tendered for yet, so that will appear as well. So you need to be doing all of that in the system. I mean, to be honest, that cost and contract admin is used a lot by the people on the call. It's just not the issues and risks that then enables to generate the flow through to those progress reports. Plus, I think it's the summary information that you can get out of the contract system now and the cost system that wasn't there before. There's quite a lot of flexibility in that reporting. It just needs to be played with and messed around, which is where I'm going to now. If there's no questions on any of that. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go into the templates module, and some people who don't have admin rights wouldn't see this stuff, but it's good to know the capability, because then you can challenge your system admin people to get this sort of information in the system for you. So again, the category has been remembered, so it's filtering for PCG. So these are the PCG templates, and this is the one we were using here. I'm just going to edit that. Now, on the first page, there's a whole bunch of stuff that this stuff you need to get your head around UniPhi and get into it. This is all about configuring so that you can get the right user experience. So linking things to template categories was great, but also maybe to standards. So if you've got a contract suite, we did a whole heap for NEC. You can then make sure that people only see those templates when they're creating a contract that's related to that type of NEC contract. So again, we have some of these out of the box now. So if you're using certain contractual standards, we may have the suite of contractual admin templates. Just let us know. If not, if you've got them, we can potentially build them. So again, to transport and main roads, their CAS contract admin system templates are all in UniPhi. So again, that's a popular one up in Queensland with some guys across quite a few companies doing that. So when they do that, you create the contract, you select the standard, you're only going to get the templates that relate to that standard. So it really improves the end user feedback. All right, that was a bit off topic, but there's a lot to this stuff. It's not really a training course. I'm just really trying to give you an understanding of capability. This is another sneak peek. This one will be a recorded sneak peek on the UniPhi 19 release, which is that this template control used to have every column you could think of. In fact, most of them didn't even have everything, but they were still very busy out of the box. They had all of them there to hide and display. Whereas now we just give you that same thing we do in the issue system, where it says, okay, these are all of the possible columns that you could have in this report. You tick which ones you want. So we want a budget, we want a forecast, and we want a variance. That I mentioned it didn't have variance to last forecast. We really should have that one ticked. So I've just ticked it now. So when that document gets created again, you're able to select last month's document to compare to and see the change, which I think is a pretty cool little feature. Again, standardizing on what code to use and what depth. So that if you don't like the fact that there's just budget and total, you can actually hide the group header and you just have this row of headings too. That work relentlessly to try and make this flexible enough to fit the needs that you guys need, and so on and so forth down this list. The risks one is another one to show on that. So again, this used to have an extensive list of fields here that would go over the page and require scrolling and everything. You can see here that the headings changed to next review date. People change what they call it in the interface. It's due date, but that's been changed. And then when I click this button again, so it's consistent for every single methodology, you'll see that there's quite a lot of fields there, including custom fields. So sample and LTI and site team are all custom fields. So all of those come in now for you to include in these reports, which weren't there before. So another reason, another inhibitor to using UniPhi. And then the other one to show off, which you saw as the interface, extension of time claims. You can see in these register types, you've got the ability to say, do I want a summary or detailed? And if you select summary, it comes up with what it's going to summarize here. And then again, you can change the text of that, and maybe not even include it if you don't want pending EOPs to be in the report. And hence that flexibility is there for that summary level information. Then the other one maybe is quickly look at this boilerplate text. So you can see you've got some really cool boilerplate text here with some template variables bringing in the actual information dynamically when you go to create it. So that's the sort of stuff you need to do. You need to think about your headings. Is it heading 1, 2, or 3? Is it none? And then when you get to the finish step, it's not the greatest interface for this, but the functionality is good. you, instead of being able to just drag this around, which will be one day, you number the output order. So I mentioned that executive summary goes first, so it's number 1. And your appendices are at the bottom. And so you've got some jumping around going on there because it's structured in a way to help the project manager compile the report, but have the output in a way that you'd want to read it. And that's how the templates are managed. So that's the webinar for today as far as the PCG progress reporting goes. There is a sneak peek of some other functionality, which I'm going to stop the recording for.